we have to do a quick recap of what everybody missed. Because they missed all the good stuff, didn't they?
I don't remember. What are we talking about?
Yeah, well, we'll get to it. So let's do this. Tell me about the Take Kimura tribute class that you're going to be doing. Hopefully, you won't have the technical difficulties that we just had, because you'll be on Zoom next month, right?
Right. We're March 12th, which is my father's birthday, and the 13th. Okay. I think it's a Friday and a Saturday. We're going to go live on Zoom. We're going to do a tribute class for my father. We usually do every year. We're doing an affiliates class seminar, but we're going to put that on hold this year. But we wanted to do something just to honor him and keep people connected. So we're going to do, just a brief, like an hour of instruction or something, and then, some video that was given to my family. It was put together with my father, pictures and Q&A and some other cool stuff. We'll have some surprise guests and things like that. So,
nice.
Yeah, it should be good. It'll be good. It'll be healing for me to teach a little bit and to see people, and then I think for other people as well to, just kind of connect and talk about him. So,
okay, excellent. And you mentioned, I mean, obviously last year you weren't able to have the instructors conference, right? But
yeah, correct.
But
yeah.
Now, but how many of those had been produced already? Was it one or just two?
Who did two? Yeah, and the last one was just we got away with it just before COVID, thankfully.
Right.
So yeah, in retrospect, we're really lucky to be able to have that time, and the people that came were able to spend. Of course, we kept everyone away from my dad, so we didn't get hugs and all that. But they got to spend some time with him and stuff, and I'm really thankful that we all had that time with him together. I've been accused of dragging him around in public for my own benefit and all these other kind of things, but the bottom line is, again, my dad loved people. He loved those relationships, and that's what kept him alive and young.
Yeah.
And, if it wasn't for COVID, I think we'd still be going to class once or twice a week, and he'd have a reason to get up and move around. And because of that, I tried, but, that I think really that's what led to his decline. Honestly, was just being isolated and not seeing all the people that he loved to see and teach. And
yeah. Well, when we were off air, I had mentioned to you that, what we have in common is that we both lost our dads in their 90s. But in all honesty, I am very happy that my parents didn't have to experience COVID, because there's no way I don't see the two of them at their advanced age surviving that type of isolation.
Yeah.
So.
No, it was hard to explain because he didn't really, know what was going on. And he was always like, where are we going? When are we, and when we would, even if he would be like, let's go somewhere, we'd get there, and then he'd be like, when are we going home?
Yeah, so, but he's allowed.
Right. And I would always tell him, but there's this thing called COVID. It's a pandemic. It's all over the world. It's like, like the Spanish influenza. And he'd go, okay, I understand.
Right. Yeah. Now he's allowed to do whatever the heck it is that he wanted. So people missed our conversation about your dad and how highly your dad valued relationships. And you mentioned 3 people. And actually, I usually ask people at the end of the episode to suggest who I should, try to get on the show. So let's do that again. The 3 people that you mentioned could be called your dad's second sons.
Excuse me. Yeah, first and foremost, I would say like Tsuyoshi Abe, who was like my brother, as long as I can remember. He came at a young age. I think he was going to the University of Washington, and studied with us for years. And then, to continue his education in martial arts, my father sent him down to Sifu Dan.
Right.
And he's probably the only person that's certified by both of them. And then there would be Nestor Rodriguez, who, as a young boy, 13, 14, was brought by his mother to my father. She lived in the neighborhood and shopped with us, and she was afraid that Nestor was going to head down the wrong path and gangs and just the wrong kind of people. And so she knew that he idolized Bruce Lee, and so came and introduced him to my father. And he was probably the youngest student that my father's ever taken on, because we never took on kids, and for that specific reason, because his mother asked, and
Yeah.
he was an at-risk kind of a situation. And also Alain de Pritter, who is our Belgian affiliate, but he's come for over 20 years every year and stayed in our home and cared for my dad and just been here like a brother. And that those kind of relationships obviously go beyond the martial arts. It's just like, those are three of the most beautiful people I know that my father was fortunate to have, at his back. So.
Mm-hmm. You'd mentioned to me also that he had a very special relationship with his daughter-in-law, your wife, Monica.
Yeah, definitely. I don't even know where to start with that one. Monica, I can't say enough about her as a wife, but, she cared for my dad for over a decade, 12 or more years, and when you do that, you sacrifice any goals or dreams you have for your own life, and you put that on hold for somebody else, excuse me. But he really loved her like a daughter. He told me that once. He said, I loved Monica like a daughter. If I'd ever had one, and, wanted it to be someone like that. But, all the times, she literally saved his life several times. Like, on one occasion, we used to always joke too. We went and we cheated, and I bought him a Dick's burger. I don't know if you've been to Seattle, but there's a place called Dick's Drive-In, and it's sort of like In-N-Out, I guess. It's probably the closest thing, but anyway, so we went there. Really greasy food, greasy. Great. So we went there, and we came back home, and he was having indigestion. For some reason, my wife was, just knew him well enough and knew that he was acting strange. She was really attentive, because of all the time she spent. She was really kind of in tune, like, obviously like I was, but yeah, she had me call an ambulance, and he was actually having a heart attack. So,
oh my God.
And then after he got out of the hospital, he wouldn't eat, and he was losing weight, and they were like, we're gonna have to put him on a feeding tube, and then once you put someone on a feeding tube at that age, it goes downhill really fast. And so she literally, and I tried, but not for lack of patience or love or anything, but she literally sat with him for hours and made him eat spoon by spoon until he regained his appetite. He had some weird thing with dementia patients or Alzheimer's patients have, where they think they're not hungry or something. Basically, it's like they starve themselves because they just decide they don't want to eat anymore for whatever reason. But on 3 occasions she did that, and literally it took about a week to get him back to where he was eating properly. But those were scary times. Another time when she insisted we take him to the hospital, and certainly that was what saved him, like, every time. So just for that alone, I can't thank her enough. Let alone she gave my dad a grandson, and he just loves Brody, and he loves Adam and his kids, both of our children, obviously his grandsons. But that was pretty special for him, knowing that the Kimura line would carry on. That was the only thing he ever asked of me, was that I have a grandson, so that we could carry the line on. And it was also important that that I continue to care of his legacy and Bruce's legacy and the Lee family. It was important that I look out for them, and continue to do what he had been doing,
Did he ever push that on you? Did you ever rebel against that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Probably in my early teens, I can relate to maybe the way Brandon felt, I guess, and how I related earlier, that he didn't want to make it, by being Bruce Lee's son. He wanted to make it on his own power.
Right. Yeah.
But in the end, we don't. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question again, Dwight, really quick here? I got distracted.
Oh no, we actually, earlier I had asked you if you had ever spoken to Brandon Lee about that parallel existence that the two of you had, being the sons of famous martial artists, and if there was any pressure to fill in those shoes.
Yeah, no, we never really got to speak as adults about it. We met when we were kids, you know. But yeah, you know, like I was telling you earlier, I used to feel like, you know, I had to fill my dad's shoes, and I thought if I ever wrote a book, it would be called Big Shoes, you know. But you know, through the everything that he's taught me, you know, and Bruce's philosophy, you realize that you have to fill your own shoes. You know, all of us have to fill our own shoes, and then and walk our own path. You know, ultimately, we can't look to any one person or anything to tell us the answers. You know, they're all within. We just need to be brave enough and you know, to look. So
yeah. What's the plan for the school? I mean, it's the only original Bruce Lee school that's still in operation, right? So what does the road ahead look like for you guys?
So our location in Chinatown burnt down. It was a multi-use building, and unfortunately, it's gone. We do have a space in Kirkland that we were working out at. This gentleman has been kind enough to allow us to use it after hours. But
yeah, this burning down thing, it didn't have anything to do with the summer stuff last year, did it?
Yeah, it was about the same time, and there were a bunch of fires lit in Chinatown. So it was potentially, you know, racially motivated, politically motivated, COVID motivated.
God.
You know, there were some Asian people chased down the street and stuff like that. But most of the time, those people were, you know, mentally ill or something else. You know, there was something else going on there too. But yeah, those were potentially, you know, related to that, unfortunately. So there were a lot of different things in that building. We were in a building, in a room specifically within the building that was a dance studio and wushu school. So, you know, it wasn't, but it was definitely, you know, in Chinatown. And I think it was on the same day a lot of things like that happened. So it was unfortunate. Yeah. But yeah, the Jiangfeng Gung Fu Institute's the second longest, oldest running school in Seattle, martial arts school, after the Seattle Dojo, which is judo.
Okay.
So yeah, certainly, you know, I've been asked before, you know, what's going to happen when your dad's gone? Are you going to continue the school? You know, I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe in my dramatic mind, part of me thought maybe I would just quit, stop everything, move to the woods and meditate under a waterfall or something. But, you know, life goes on. The ability to continue to do good and help people like my father has is you know, what I want to do with my life.
Right.
Yeah, and it's the best way that I can really honor his memory too, is to continue on. You know, and he never, to your question earlier, coming back around as I always do, closing the loop. You know, he never really asked much of me, you know, except the only thing I can really ever remember him asking me was to have a grandchild so that the Kimura line, you know, carried on. But he was careful to never push the, you know, this position on me, because he knew that if he did, I think that I would back away. You know, he never really made me do anything. He encouraged me once he saw that, you know, spark or something. But, you know, when I was in early teens, I kind of rebelled in that way and just wanted to be anything but around all those people that took my dad away from me. Would have been fine just to work out with my dad alone, but I just didn't want to be part of it. You know, I didn't want to be part of the politics and just all the BS that, in my, you know, estimation. Yeah. But then I got into a couple fights in high school, and, you know, then I just realized, you know, what I'd learned up to that point as a child had helped me, you know, get out of those situations unscathed. And so that initially was the reason, right? Was to protect myself. And, you know, shit, if I did well enough in a fight with what I knew, what could I do if I knew more, right? And then as I really began to understand myself and my father and why he was doing what he'd done all those years, you know, as an adult or as you grow older, you begin to realize, well, he's helping people. And, you know, it wasn't something that I begrudged so much as I became to admire him for those qualities.
not everybody appreciates what their instructors do for them ultimately, right? And I know that you guys have had your share of incidents, you know, with like people leaving to do their own thing and what have you. What are your thoughts on that kind of situation?
You know, I think it's always a shame when anybody, you know, betrays their teacher or does something that's out of, as my father would have said, you know, outside of the norms of what's expected of them, or, you know, there's a, whether it's written or not, there's an agreement that you have with your teacher, you know, to
Yeah.
not abuse what you're taught, to not go out and beat people up, to
But
follow.
it's like you said earlier, your dad's from an era where a handshake, you know, sealed the deal, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. And you know, it's a tough subject, because I feel like you know, this happens in every walk of life. Whether you're you know, I have a student who's an art teacher, and he related to me. You know, I've had similar things happen. People left,
Yeah.
tried to start up their own classes, you know, with what I was teaching. Um, you know, my dad prepared me for a lot of things, and that was one of the things he prepared me for. He said, you know, when I pass away, people are going to leave. Things are going to happen because I'm not there anymore. It happened to me when Bruce passed. He said people left, and they said, you know, I'm not going to be here anymore because I was here to learn from Bruce, not from you. Bye. So,
Right.
you know, I was very prepared for it. What I wasn't prepared for was the fact that these people would leave, you know, sort of in secret before he passed away. Some of the, I think, you know, the people that left felt like I was taking things in a different direction other than the spirit of what my father had always done. You know, I was commercializing the school a little more, advertising, charging. You know, my father had always told me that, you know, he never charged. He never wanted to make a dime off his relationship with his friend. And,
Right.
but that it was okay if I wanted to. But having said that, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And he was very clear to me about, you know, how things should be done and how they shouldn't. And every student since Bruce taught knew that's an understanding. If you leave the school, you don't go and teach what you've learned. If you open a school, you don't do it commercially, and you don't use the name. Those were the very few things that they asked. You know, my dad taught for years, and that's what he asked of people. You know, don't go out and start up a Jeet Kune school or a Junfan Gung Fu school. You know, if you're going to do something, check with me. You can do it in private, small group of people, as long as it's not commercial. Because he didn't have to worry. He didn't want to worry about what people were doing with his Sifu's name. And,
Right.
you know, I mean, he felt that responsibility. And that was why I was the only person that he, you know, placed that trust to do that and to pass it on in that way. You know, back to Monica again. You know, Monica took care of him for years, and we, you know, without a break. You know, caregivers get time off, they get counseling, they get all these things. You know, Monica didn't get any of that. You know, she had no time off. She put her own health and her life on hold,
Yeah.
and to her own detriment. You know, and those times that we did need a break, we looked to family and friends and students that we trusted. I cannot say this enough, that I trusted to take my father and do things. And, you know, unfortunately, those people, some people, whether it was those people, other people are using those opportunities or use those opportunities to take pictures and videos and things that I had asked them previously not to do, not to post, not to use of him. The way, you know, it's up to me how he looks, how he's portrayed.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, everywhere from people who met him once and took a picture and went to a seminar, or, you know, we trusted as family, are using pictures and using their relationship to further their ego and their business or whatever. And to me, that's just shameful, and it's sad.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have a problem if those guys go out and teach or whatever. Just all I'm asking is what my dad asked of them is, you know, and when they left, they tried to take the school and the students. They named their school the Junfan Gung Fu Institute. They sent an email to all of my students saying, we're moving. They specifically told my senior students not to tell me this was happening. represented themselves at seminars as teaching under our banner, which I specifically asked them. I mean, all of this stuff, you know, I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah.
It's very upsetting, but, you know, the sad part of it is that, you know, they just, you know, didn't seem to get it. But, you know, they profess to be students, but it doesn't seem like they learn much. But, you know, the bottom line is they can do what they want. You know, I don't have a problem with it. It's just, again, there's a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And I will always have a problem with people that do things the wrong way.
Yeah.
My father was a very kind man. He was very loving and very empathetic. And he did not like confrontation, but there was one thing he was very clear on, is if somebody did something that he felt was wrong with Bruce's legacy or something, he had to say something, and he would have, you know. And I know right now, knowing my dad, I mean, I feel like we're the same person really in a lot of ways, you know. I mean, we were each other's people.
Right.
If you understand what that means, you know, everyone has a person that we know we can count on, that if we die is going to take care of our people, our family, you know, beyond blood. And we were each other's people, you know. So I know his mind as well as he knew my mind. And knowing him, I know that he would be very unhappy, because I know that he loved me. And I was probably the most important thing in his life, other than his family and Bruce, you know, and the legacy. So.
Right. I hope this is not a difficult question, because it just occurred to me that as Taki Kimura's son, you have something in common with Dan and Asano, because Dan and Asano was Bruce Lee's Los Angeles lieutenant. You were Taki Kimura's Seattle lieutenant. But then you have another relationship with Dan and Asano, because he and Taki Kimura were Bruce Lee's lieutenants as well. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Right. So I think that there's a two-pronged relationship between you and Dan and Asano. Have you, how much discussion have you had with him over the years?
He knows, you know, he knows everything about, you know, what's going on. I you know, luckily, again, the last time my father and I were in Los Angeles, we were able to spend a little bit of time with Sifu Dan. And but I'm in contact with him, and, you know, Tsuyoshi and Simo Pala and things like that. You know, they've been, you know, again, always so supportive and loving, and they're part of our family as well. But, you know, they've been, you know, all along, you know, worried about my father, and, you know, constantly checking in and those kind of things. But yeah, no, I mean, now that my father's gone, I, you know, really consider Sifu Dan, you know, the next in line as my teacher. And I really wish I was closer, you know, to be able to study with him, just to be in the same room with him. I think would make me feel better.
Yeah. But you did mention to me that you, at some point, you'll be doing joint seminars with him, correct?
Yeah, we were trying to put something together before my dad passed, you know. I was working with Simo Pala, and, you know, Guru has such a busy schedule, you know, and so that was the difficulty, was just trying to, and then, you know, with between my work schedule and my father's health issues or whatever, it was, you know, it didn't work out. You know, we're still talking about it, and, you know, I will be honored, you know, to, you know, be involved with anything that Guru Dan does, obviously, as a stand-in for my father. So. That's
talk about, you know, not necessarily closing, but talking about connecting the loop, right?
Yeah, I really wish we could have done that, you know, more of that earlier. You know, unfortunately, my dad just, you know, he was a businessman, and he didn't want to, he shunned all that stuff. You know, he didn't want to do any of that. I really wish we could have convinced him to do more of that when he was younger. But I can remember sitting on the phone and several times hearing him say, no, Dan, I don't want to do any of that. You're the guy. You got to take care of it. You got to spread it. You got to continue it. I just want to have my little class, and I got my business here. And, you know, so, as much as I'm sure Dan tried to bring him into the fold, you know, he always pushed Dan to be the spokesperson and to be the person to carry it on, you know.
Right.
So,
I mean, you mentioned briefly about people thinking that your approach to the school wasn't necessarily in keeping with your dad. Your dad was a professional businessman. he was not a professional martial art businessman, right? But correct me if I'm wrong, he would not have stopped you from professionalizing the school, correct?
No, because he knew that I wouldn't prostitute it. He knew that I would do it in a proper way. You know, he told me about the conversations him and Bruce had about opening chains of school around the United States, and the reason that they chose not to do that because, you know, eventually each person would just be a paycheck, and you wouldn't actually be teaching the individual and helping them grow, and it just becomes this commercial thing. And it's certainly not what I wanted to do. I was just trying to support my father, you know, and his medical bills and all the things, you know, the household without my wife working, you know. And, you know, my father was in a position where financially he could do that, you know, we could not teach and not charge, right, and continue to have a school. And God knows I'd love to do that because, you know, when you charge people, they feel like you owe them something. And I guess maybe you do in that transaction other than lessons. But, you know, there's something to be not charging people and know that you have really dedicated people. And then if somebody does something wrong, you can just say, you know what, this is not in the way that we do things. And, you know, if we can't work this out, then you're no longer here. And it has nothing to do with money or anything, you know?
There's also the contention, though, that when you give valuable stuff to people for free, somehow very few people have the integrity to actually value it.
Yeah, that's true. It's funny because the students that we have now that we've been charging are way more loyal and dedicated.
Yeah, right.
Even the senior guys, if I tell them you don't have to pay because you've been teaching or whatever, they always pay. It wasn't the case with the old students. You know, they never paid. So, you know, I mean, they may have done things, but all students did things, you know. I mean, someone recently said that they had a huge part in building our club that was out behind our house. Well, that was not true necessarily. It was partially true, but Bill Belinsky, who just recently passed away, was the guy who was out there every day, spent over $13,000 of his money to help us build this. I know because we had to pay him back. You know, that's when people say shit, excuse me, when they say things, they're just taking away from other people. You know, when they say I was the one that did this or did that, you know, it makes me angry because it takes away, you know, if someone says I was, you know, caring for Taki all the time or something, you know, it makes it seem like my wife wasn't, or I wasn't or something. And that makes me angry because it's taking away from other people. You don't have to take away from other people to elevate yourself, you know? It's just, again, you know, I just feel like the lessons were lost on some of these people. So, you know.
Yeah, it reminds me of, you know, at the end of the BBC documentary, Way to Warrior, one of his 2 episodes, Sifu Dan says, if you're secure in your knowledge, you don't have to hide it. You know, you can just bring it out, which, you know, to me by extension means if you're secure in who you are, you don't have to lie about it. You know, you can just be who you are, right? And people will get it. You don't have to misrepresent yourself at all. And I think that, you know, have you ever thought of this? It's really just a simple thing. There was a guy named Bruce Lee. He happened to be born here. He came back to take advantage of his citizenship. And he started doing some stuff in Seattle, and it went from there. It really is just a simple thing. Why is there so much consternation and confusion and controversy decades later?
Well, and it's the message that, you know, I mean, I look at my father, you know, John Little once said that of all the people he interviewed or met in the Bruce Lee world, my dad was the one guy who really lived the philosophy and lived the way that, you know, and he really did. You know, that's the problem is, you know, he lacked a lot of, you know, he didn't have an ego. He didn't have a lot of, I mean, he did in his own way, but, you know, he fought a lot of those battles early on in life and figured out who he was, you know. But yeah, it is kind of sad, you know, that all these people are trying to be the next Bruce Lee, posing like him, looking like, trying to look like him. And, you know, and it's like, be your own person, dude. Be your whoever, John Doe or whoever you are, and be the best guy that you are. And then give Bruce the credit. But you don't need to, like, you know, try and open a Jeet Kune school and do all this. I mean, you know, I'm sorry. I'm off track here, but,
no. I mean, because you certainly, I mean, like I say to people all the time, what all of us have in common is Bruce Lee. you know, dependent on your generation, depending on where you came into the art. So to me, if we use that as a starting point, that's kind of the way to have harmony, because all of us have that common origin point.
Right.
Right.
And my dad didn't want that. You know, he wanted harmony. You know, he fought really hard while he was around with the nucleus to get people to get together. And that was all just towards, you know, securing Bruce's art and philosophy, you know, into the future. He just wanted to make sure that it was sought to as best as he could, you know. I mean, just like anything that you've worked your life on, you want to make sure when you're gone that someone's going to be looking out for it and they're going to steer it in the right direction and it's not going to be lost. And, you know, the philosophical aspect is really the thing that is yet really to fully be realized, you know. I mean, that's the thing that is a vehicle for self-expression and, you know, all of these things for happiness that can be applied to every part of life and will be enduring, like Plato and, you know, these kind of people. But you know, in the end, it's, you know, a punch is just a punch, a kick is just a kick, and it's a way to use your body. And, you know, maybe Bruce Lee's life is a starting point for you, but eventually you're going to find out what works best for you, or you're going to feel that you need to move in a different direction or whatever. And that's fine. Be yourself, you know. It's like you get a message from the telephone, you don't carry the phone around the rest of your life. You put it down and you go on with the message you learned and you live a better life. You know, you don't carry the damn phone around. It's like a boat analogy. You use a boat to get across the river. You don't carry it on your back for the rest of your life, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you use it for what it's there for and you move on, you know.
Do you think that that's the message, the Jeet Kune message, that let's take on the personal responsibility? That's the JKD. That's the part of the JKD message that we've done the worst job of conveying. That it is a vehicle for personal development.
I would say, yeah, probably, definitely. You know, and then when we're arguing about what it is and all of these other things, it's missing the point, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think there's, you know, great possibility for unity in the Jeet Kune world, just like there is in any of the martial arts communities or anything else, you know. But, you know, a big problem in our world is, you know, the people that don't have legitimate lineage or all these other things. And I understand that, you know, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with teaching what you've learned in an informal circumstance, as long as you're not out there saying you're something you're not. If you want to do those things, go to school, you know. I don't read something on Facebook and think I can call myself Dr. Andy.
Right.
You know, I have to go to medical school. You know, I've studied my whole life with my father and other people. And, you know, that is why I feel comfortable when people call me Sifu, and because of the role that I have. And because you know, I feel that that's correct. But, you know, there's a lot of confusion out there in this world and that. But, you know, again, if you want to, just like we were trying to encourage people to do in the nucleus, if you want to be legitimate, you want to go out there and teach, get with somebody that's your senior or that's has legitimate, you know, lineage, and study with them. You know, it may take 10 years, but that's how long it takes.
But this is the thing. I mean, you know, there's two things to that. Why do they think that, well, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I just wrote about this. In Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they accept that it takes 10 years to get a black belt. But have you ever had anybody approach you at a seminar and ask you about becoming an instructor? And this is like your first meeting with them. You don't know them, but they're already asking you about being an instructor.
I've had people offer me thousands of dollars straight up on email, not knowing me, to certify them over phone or video or something. I don't know.
Is that because of the Bruce Lee connection? Everybody wants to be like Bruce or something, and they want to take shortcuts?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the reason. I mean, it's a business move too, right? You know, you know, he has the recognition, he has icon status. So, you know, you put a picture of Bruce up, half the people, you know, probably wouldn't know if you were teaching his art or not, generally, unless, you know, somebody knew something. So that's the danger in that, right? But you know, again, like you said, you know, it's, you know, the Western idea too of wanting martial arts is that, you know, you're going to pay for something. I even have students that I've known for years that want to finished their education and asked, how long is it going to take for me to get to this level of this certification? And I'm like, you know, how long do you think? They say, oh, 2 years. Well, then that means it's going to take 4. You know, don't ask me those things, man. You don't want to know the answers. The more you ask, the more you're just missing the point, you know?
Yeah, Chris Kent has, I think, and I adopted it from him, the best answer to that. How long does it take? Well, it takes as long as it takes.
Right.
You know, and
I putting time limits on things, and then you're definitely limiting yourself right there, you know?
Exactly, which means then that you are not understanding the JKD principle of no limitation.
Right.
You know?
Well, and that, you know, eventually you have to realize you might not be able to do something someone else can do.
Right.
As hard and long as you try. Maybe you're just not built that way.
You're not built for it. Yeah, I remember back in the 90s, inside Kung Fu magazine, I think it was, every once in a while they would have they'd have a segment where they would ask a question of several different instructors, and that would be the article. You know, they would print that person's the answers to this list of questions, and in one segment, the question was, how long does it take to get a black belt in your system? And they asked that of Dan and Asano. Now, I don't know what was edited, you know, left out or put in or whatever, but he actually said 10 years. That's the answer that they printed, that Dan and Asano said 10 years. And then years later, you know, when the whole apprentice instructor and associate and full instructor, when all that stuff started, I realized that it was about 10 years to make it to associate instructor. You know,
well, some of that time, you know, and honestly, is that I mean, part of that is your physical journey, but a lot of that, I feel like traditionally is just whether or not you can really trust that person, you know. Like, you know, you get to know their character as much as they're learning what you're trying to teach them, right? Like, and are they worthy of this, you know?
Yeah.
And in many cases, even in the past, and the mistakes that I made in certifying people, you know, I did it because I felt that because of the amount of time they spent with us and dedicated and their loyalty to us, that they deserve something for their time, you know? And a lot of times, you know, many times I see my father, you know, not certify, but, you know, move persons from rank to rank who really weren't physically, you know, there, and maybe never would, but he gave them that rank because of their loyalty and because they were trying and because, you know, even though we weren't really about ranks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
Sometimes we didn't back in the days. And I felt like it was important, you know, knowing what I know about education and leadership, that, you know, it's important to give people goals and that they feel like they're meeting these goals. But it's a very Zen thing, you know, it's a piece of paper, but it's not.
Right. Yeah.
It's everything and nothing, Dwight. It's not going to help you. You know, oh, hold on, I've got a black belt.
That's almost exactly what Cass Magda said to me when I got promoted to full instructor. He sent me he sent me a note with a matchstick. Right? He said, "Congratulations on your promotion. Now you know what to do with your certificate."
Right. Don't let it go to your head, man. Burn that stuff. No.
Yeah.
You know, it means a lot, but at the same time, you know, it is what it is. It's recognition, but it doesn't mean that you're a great fighter, that you know, generally it should, you know, say that you've achieved a certain status. That's what I want to do with our organization going forward, is just, you know, make sure that when I'm gone and I leave it in my son's hands, or in another Kimura's hands, that, you know, things are done in a very, you know, professional manner, so that not only is it, you know, like at a certain point we got Jeet Kune and Genfan Gung Fu, you know, added to a list of, you know, the other official martial arts or whatever in China, right? You know, it was recognized. I just want to make sure, like, you know, Guru Dan's a perfect example. He's got a great organization. He does things in a very professional manner. You know, he's a great teacher, and I want to make sure that, you know, I can represent my father and Bruce in that way, and that my organization is very professional and those kind of things, you know, very casual and family, but at the same time professional and together. And, you know, so
But that's the yin yang of it, isn't it?
It
Right?
is, yeah.
Being professional, but being professional, family oriented. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and I think most of it's the, like, it's not always so much, what you're learning. It's the things around what you're learning, I guess, if that makes sense. Like what was important to Bruce was that, and my father, was that people, we have a good workout and you have a great camaraderie, and then you go have some tea or something to eat at lunch after.
Yeah.
But again, it's about relationships, and I think, again, that's the secret to living a long, happy, and healthy life is staying active, but also, relationships with people,
Yeah.
friendship, with your family, that gives you a reason to get up, go for a walk, go out and do these things, maybe go to work out. Because, every
Right.
time I would be injured or tired, or when I was younger and just didn't want to go with my dad to work out, because we were, he was a single father. So when he would go, I would go generally, right? So I wouldn't be alone. But, all the times that I didn't want to go, if I had an aunt that would watch me or something, he would just say, I know your hand hurts, you're just not feeling up to it, but just go and do what you can and you'll feel better after. And sure enough, man, every time. I mean, not even really worked out, but just being around the guys and
Right.
girls and the atmosphere. And even if I just did stretch a little bit or something, I always felt better after. And he was right,
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's, why people, I think, while he met his end, he just sort of, he didn't have that reason to get up and see the guys as much anymore and move around. And he used to tell me that, I was worried when he stopped driving and stuff like that, that he would go downhill, that he would get out of the mainstream of life and those things. So I keep relating that to people. I think it's really important that, regardless of what your age is, especially now during COVID, we're all feeling isolated and depressed and stuff, just to get out and go for a walk, and there's other things that we can do, it's just outside of the normal things that we would have done, and maybe, but at the same time, we can do a lot of things, and we can still keep in touch with the people we care about through video chat or phone calls or at distance or whatever. But
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? And did we mention that since we came back on air, no, I don't think we did, the tribute class that you're doing next month? I think we were off air when we talked about that. So we should tell people.
yes, good
So
point here.
your dad's birthday,
We
right?
usually
March
do
12th.
my dad's birthday, the 12th and 13th of March. We're going to do live on Zoom, and instructors, and we'll do like an hour of instruction, and then we're going to play some videos. We'll have some surprise guests, and we usually have the instructors and affiliates conference this time of year. We didn't last year because of COVID, and we just didn't really, obviously, wanted to do something on video this year. But after my father passed, we just decided to. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do something, but I decided that it would be nice to do something just to kind of remember him, and it would be healing for me and potentially
Yeah.
for other people as well to,
Yeah.
have a short workout and just connect with each other. And it was my dad's wish too that we continue to carry on and do all those kind of things, bring everybody together, and that was kind of his dream. So.
Um, I mean, you've alluded to it right from the start of this conversation, but can you encapsulate what you would like people to remember about your father, and then also what you consider to be his philosophy?
Yeah, give me 1 second here. Sorry, man, you're making me nervous. My mouth's dry.
That's my job.
Oh, boy, I'm on top. Excuse me. I mean, again, like I said, I think family, relationships, and if I think of one word, if I think of my dad, it would be integrity. That Bruce helped him, and he was forever grateful for what he felt his seafood did for him to bring him back to life again, and that
Yeah.
was how he dedicated his life, was to helping others. And I want to carry on doing, and I will carry on doing that, the same as he did, and that's what he wanted for me. He really trusted me to care for Bruce's and his legacy, and not really anyone else. That's pretty much why he really didn't certify anyone else when he was of sound mind. Anyone who was certified after me pretty much was with at my direction. He may have signed the certificate, but it was certainly my doing. And I explained to him why we were doing it and who it was for. So that kind of gives you an idea where he was at. But he did actually, just to set the record straight, certify one other person when I was a child, Chris Casey, and he's deceased. So other than that, I really, consider myself, and in Tsuyoshi, I think he certified at a 5th level before early. And I know that he, obviously was comfortable in the kind of person that Tsuyoshi was, and certainly in his, and how much he knew. I mean, he used to joke that Tsuyoshi, because of Dan, probably knows more than I have ever known, but that's as humble as my dad, right? He probably forgot more about martial arts than any of us ever knew, but he would never tell you that, he would tell you he knew the basics very well, but other than that, he was just was happy to have been Bruce's friend. But those kind of things are really important to me. His dream was, again, that qualified people with integrity who really understood Bruce's philosophy would come together and form kind of a united family,
Yeah.
Again, having said that, I will say that he always said there was a right way to do things and a wrong way to do things. And, bringing people into the fold just because they're people is, again, qualified, quality group of people, and again, if you're really interested in being a proponent of Bruce's art and being a part of that, then, and earnestly do it the right way,
Yep.
So, there's plenty of people out there you can go to. So,
okay. So I'm going to impose on you and ask you, if I communicate to you that I reached out to Tsuyoshi Abe and haven't heard from him about coming on to the show, that you'll intercede on my behalf.
A ton of crap, yes. I can give you some other people I think you should speak to too, but
well, I mean, definitely.
Yeah, definitely Tsuyoshi, for sure.
Yeah, right.
He doesn't like to talk very much. He's again very humble, and but if you think about it, how many other people are certified, full instructor under both those people? Not me.
Right. Mm-hmm. Not me.
There you go.
Right. Yeah.
Good man.
Yeah. So you're working on a new book about your dad, his philosophies, his teachings, and what have you.
Yeah, well, we were trying, even if you would have just seen it for the moment and forgotten the next moment, we were really trying to get it together before he passed. But I'm working on a book about his philosophy and kind of teachings, little wisdoms, all the things I don't want to forget that he used to tell me.
Right.
All the things that when I was younger, I hated it when he would say that, like, son, when are you going to do the dishes? I'll do them later. Or, what are you going to do? I'll do that tomorrow. And he'd look at me and go, tomorrow never comes. And I'd be like, oh God, I know you're always telling me that, This thing about procrastination, and so it's just things like that, that he would relate to me and he related to other students, and just those important things that I don't want to be lost. That should be relatively soon. I'm having an artist, Guy Dorian Sr., who does some art for Marvel and stuff, just a fantastic artist, do cover art and chapter art.
Wow.
And David Tabman's helping me with some photos and organize and edit and things like that. So,
nice.
And I'm just, reaching out to some of the closer students and people, family that knew him, and just talking about what were the things that you remember him teaching you and telling you and helping you with. And so just so that those things can be passed on, to further generations. And
so it's not going to be another physical instructional JKD book.
Nope. Wisdom, stuff you can use in your practical everyday life, and you can pass on to people you care about and love. And that'll be coming. It's just, I've thought about doing a physical, like an instructional book. It's just, there's so many other good ones out there. I think about my dad when people would ask him to do interviews, and he'd say, well, I've already said everything I could possibly say about Bruce, so what are you going to ask me that's any different? And that's kind of what I feel about.
Hey, let me ask you another impossible to answer question. Your favorite Jeet Kune book that's out there already?
Oh God, that's hard. I was just going to mention, every time I think about doing a book on John Fan or something, I look at Kevin Seaman's book and I think, man, that's really a great book. And I was talking to Kevin the other day and I told him, like, every time I think about writing a book, I just think, well, you already did it. So,
right.
And you did it so well,
When I write my book, Jeet Kune Basics, I'm going to rip off David Chang.
There you go. I mean, another good one. So many good ones out there, and I really honestly, I haven't been to the library and bought books in a long time. I will have to admit. So I apologize if I've left anyone out or forgotten anyone. Please forgive me. But
yeah, I mean,
no, I think again, a lot of that's already been done. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing one. I'd like to some old pictures and articles of my dad and I doing stuff that were in a Japanese magazine. I'd like to put out somewhere in some way.
Hey, okay, I don't think we were on air when we showed this. Talk about old pictures.
Oh yeah, you're gonna make me cry again.
I'm sorry, man. But
no,
I found this one in, I think it was a newspaper article or something. That's where I found it, and I thought, oh, I love his hairstyle. I love his hairstyle and his eyewear. He's like really cool.
My poor cousin Bruce Horry gets no credit for that photo. But he took it, I think he was in the University of Washington at the time. I don't know if he was taking a photography class or something, but he took a bunch of pictures of my dad, like doing stuff like kicking and punches and a few of these pictures. Yeah. And he was, he was telling me about the day that he took those, as I was telling you, I think I was, what they determined children have now is ADD, because I can remember running around screaming through the halls and all these things when I was a kid. But he said, I was squirming around, I wouldn't sit still. And so my dad was glad he didn't have on to me there. But the fashion choice too, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like was that
very slick.
Was that a mistake in the 70s?
and the cut on the t-shirt looks like it looks like he might have been lifting and what have you at that time.
Yeah, there's another picture that I posted with the memorial kind of obituary thing I posted for him. And it's another version of that picture, but his arm is straight down, boy, and you can see like all the veins in his arm and stuff. And he never really showed that up. I mean, you could tell he was in really good shape.
Yeah.
He told me that back in those days he could do whatever they called a pull up to press up thing, where he could pull himself up and then press himself.
The muscle up is what they call it now. Yeah.
I was watching some gymnasts the other day and I was thinking, that was what my dad was talking about.
Yeah.
He used to take these like 75 or 50-pound bags of potatoes or whatever they were, and he would press them above his head when he was in the produce room and stuff, which doesn't seem like a lot, but if you get a bag of stuff, it's just really unwieldy. And but he was super, super strong, even though.
Was he into that stuff before Bruce Lee or through Bruce Lee or whatever?
He was interned in the camps during the Second World War for almost 5 years, and at that time he studied judo, and he earned his brown belt. But he used to tell me about how cruel those guys were. They would work out, like if they threw you and you didn't get up fast enough, they'd start kicking you and shit. So he said one time there was a guy who would close his eyes and hop on one foot when he was doing randori, which is sort of like sparring, right?
Yeah.
Judo. And because he was so confident, right? A smaller guy. But he said, my dad told me, he said, I threw that guy once and boy, that made him mad. He said, I've never seen the ceiling from so many different angles. And he said, every time he threw me, he'd start kicking me, if I didn't get up fast enough, just to be thrown again, and I know what that's like. I got thrown once by Sato. Used to teach at the Seattle Dojo.
Yeah.
And he was an Olympic champion, and he did a sotogari. There's a version of a sotogari to me once, and not only would it feel like being thrown to the ground and falling on the ground, but like being pressed into the ground. Like, I've never hit the ground so hard and had like every bit of my breath knocked out of me. I remember realizing at that moment, like, if someone did that to me in the street, that'd pretty much be it,
Right. And you guys have a very close relationship with the Seattle Dojo, don't you?
I feel like we do. I haven't been there in years. I think Alan Yamada, Sensei Yamada's son, is running things there now. I wanted to stop in there with my dad a bunch of times, but then COVID, of course, and all these other things. But yeah, that was the first place he put me to. Judo is where the Kimuras start their education, and that's what I started my son Brody in judo also at the with some other kids his age and stuff. But yeah, that's where I worked till I got barely a yellow belt, I think. And
that's where Bruce Lee also did some judo there.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And Kato was one of the guys he was doing judo with and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, okay. So what have we not talked about? Before you go, tell people what's the best way to get in touch with you. Is it Facebook, the website, or what?
Yeah, Facebook. I have my Sifu Andy Kimura and then the Taki Andy Kimura. I think I'll probably be combining those and just having mine eventually. I just kept the other one open. Just kind of for my father and all that, but for the fans and people that wanted to reach out. But our website is KimuraClan-JKD.com. I'm still working on getting the Junfan Gung Fu Seattle website back. That has not been under my control for 3 or more years. I was hijacked along with whatever. It's where it is. So there's plenty of ways to get a hold of me. Yeah. So
okay.
Find someone. It's like 7 degrees, right? You'll know someone that knows how to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
They can call you. You know how to get a hold of me.
Yeah, well, I do. Hey man, I do what I can.
I appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. Like I said, I think maybe we weren't streaming live when I embarrassed you and called you Jeet Kune royalty, but that's how I feel. That's how I feel about it. Look, I still kick myself. 40 years ago, I lived in Seattle for like 3 months and never made it over to your dad. So so you're the I relish the opportunity to be able to talk with you, man. I really do.
Thank you. Well, and I want to try to be the best, me I can be, but also I want to be able to sit down with someone and give them the same kind of advice and feeling my father would have, so that they leave feeling a little up and, hopeful. And, he just had that way with people. I'll probably have to write another book after this one, just about him, just about his life and my thoughts and all the stuff that he told me. I knew him better than anybody, and actually probably my wife, but
it's like you said, Andy, your dad had that special talent of making everybody feel special within a few seconds.
Yeah, he did.
That's something that has to be chronicled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If there's one thing that's been comforting in all of, this has been every person that's texted or called me or related something on Facebook about some moment I never even knew about that he did for them or made them feel a certain way, and just took the time to talk to them. And that's really been comforting, that his legacy is going to live on because of his actions, I mean, that's a message to all of us,
Yeah.
So, a couple of things I really wanted to shout out to. I want to thank you to my wife, of course, always for being my rock. My boys, Adam and Brody, for being supportive through all of this, and just, my niece, Gabby, who really helped me out a lot on the day my father passed. I want to give her a shout out. She helped to prepare my father before they took him away, which I just didn't have the strength to do. So she is a warrior. So anyone else I forgot, honey?
I think David Tadman is telling us that we forgot to talk about the film, a film about your dad.
Yeah, potentially a film. I just want to thank all the students too, all my students, family, friends, David Tadman, Matt Amory, Linda Pretter, Marvin Ishmael, Damon Evans, Bill Sang, all of our affiliates who have been so supportive. COC's been calling me every day, checking on me, making sure I'm all right, as well as Elaine. So I just want to thank everyone who's been supportive and who's part of our family. And if I've forgotten anyone, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, there's a bunch of those names that you just called that I will ask you to intercede on my behalf when I try to get them on the show.
You got it. No, they got a lot. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, movie. We've been trying to get a movie made about my dad's life, or get that idea. So that's part of writing this book about some of his wisdoms and stuff. And that was something we kind of wanted to really get done before he was gone. But I've been trying to work on a script or something like that about his life. Certainly a lot to be said, and so many people out there could offer relate their stories and things that I might not even know about. So
yeah,
we're going to be kind of reaching out and asking me those kind of things, but also looking to find someone to produce this movie and get it made. I think that would be great. I think it's just a lot to offer in his life that could help people, especially right now. Just everything that he went through is inspirational. Even just take the martial arts out of it. Even meeting Bruce Lee might be a small part of a scene in the movie, but it wouldn't be. It would be about so much more. So right.
Yeah. See, I think
the underlying message would all be.
I think sometimes that's what people don't realize. They think that. So like if you and I get on here, since this is the Jeet Kune Dialogues, we're supposed to talk about Bruce Lee all the time. We're supposed to talk about the difference between Jun Fan, Gung Fu, and Jeet Kune and all that stuff, no, that's not all there is to it, right? Right? There's so much more. There's so much depth to Jeet Kune. There's so much depth to so many other people besides Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune. We do have that in common, but so that's my purpose, to get and talk to somebody like you and get to more familiar with your points of view and whatever. To me, that's priceless. So I want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me this evening, man. It's an honor. And anything that I can do with whatever your projects are, just reach out, right? And I'll do whatever I can.
I appreciate that. One last thing, I want to give a shout out to Jen E. Grieber and Eric. Eric just got out of surgery, so hopefully he's recovering well. But Jenny's like family to us, so we just want to say hi to her and Gracie and Eric and make sure they're doing okay.
Nice. All right, sir. Well, have a great weekend. And when it's time to do this again, I'll definitely be in touch, okay?
Cool. Thank you so much again for the time, and I appreciate everyone that tuned in. And yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Take care, Andy.
Bye-bye.
All right, folks. That was episode 165 with Andy Kimura. So I hope you had a good time with that. I think he's one of the coolest guys out there in JKD, and he's got such wonderful stories. I definitely think I agree with a lot of you who said, that's a book on his dad is something that you'd snap up immediately, right? Okay, so feel free, share, like, and comment. I'll review everything after posting. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D. Woods. Next Friday, I don't know how y'all are going to handle this. We promise to be on our best behavior, but like I said in the advance warning postcard, y'all just might need subtitles, because when I hang out with homeboys from Trinidad and Barbados, my accent just might change. We might not use our Queen's British accent. So next Friday, episode 166 with G. Anthony Joseph and Marvin Ishmael. Come hang out with us. This one's going to be rollicking, I promise you. And it should be at regular 6 p.m. time. Right. So I'll see some of you back here on Wednesday for the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. If not, I'll see you next Friday, 6 p.m. for another episode of the Jeet Kune Dialogues. Until then, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. Stay safe. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Talk soon. Take care.